Have you ever had a splinter? When I was a kid, I grew up near a building site, so I had splinters all the time. And I can remember the horrible ritual of extraction. My mom would find a sewing needle, probably the largest that she owned, and stick it in some alcohol and then begin digging until the tears flowed. It was not a pretty thing. And when she was all done, I would look at the tip of that needle and just see a little tiny speck of wood and wonder to myself, how could such a tiny little speck create such a huge problem and so much pain in my life? Well, today's lesson from the book of Numbers is about that very thing. Moses is talking to the Israelites just before they're about to pass over into the land of Canaan. And he tells them, drive the Canaanites out completely, because if you don't, they'll be like splinters in your eyes and thorns in your side. The Canaanites were people who had a terrible lifestyle. They were decadent in their sexual practices, they were cheaters and liars, and in their religious practices they were harsh and cruel, even sacrificing their children to the god Molech. So the problem was that all these habits that they had were capable of being passed on to Israelites. And Moses said, you know, when you go over into that land, those things might not look so bad at first, but if you allow them to stay, guess what? They'll come and they'll get you. Well, today, we can't drive people out of the land like the Israelites drove the Canaanites out of the land. And besides, Jesus taught us that more often than not, the real problem is not the problem of other people and their habits, but the habits of our own hearts. And what this passage is trying to say to us is, we've got to drive out the habits in our lives that, even though they look like small things, could eventually destroy us. I know this firsthand. When I first became a Christian, I had the habit of lying. And yes, I became a Christian and I said, well, I'm not going to tell any big whoppers, but maybe once in a while it won't be so bad to tell a little white lie if it gets me off the hook or makes me look good. And I continued that. And you know what? Over time, those things became splinters and thorns to me. I lost the respect of my family. I lost the respect of my friends. And it nearly cost me my ministry. Yes, even after I was a pastor, some of those little white lying habits would still be there just so that I would be okay and feel okay. And then God dealt with me. And He brought out the big needle of extraction and did the work and dug into my soul and got it out. And I got to tell you, it was not a pretty thing. I wish I had chased it away from the beginning. But eventually He got that out, but not without a lot of pain. You see, those lies had become like splinters in my eyes and a thorn in my side. And even though sometimes they were very little, they had a very big effect and could wreak a lot of havoc. The thing is that God wants us to drive everything out of our lives when we give our lives to Him, so that we're not afflicted by those things and not bothered and worried about them. So, how about you? Have you got some splinters hanging around that need to be extracted? And will you let God do it? Thanks.